we have smoke in St. Peter's Square now. So
Look
we
at
will
that.
come
Look
back, and
at
it
that.
looks to be
It looks to be
white.
We
We have
Look
a
at that
pope.
smoke streaming out.
This is good.
This is incredible news here, coming up here on 6:08 p.m. here in Rome at the Vatican, and we have white smoke streaming out.
And you can
of
hear the
chimney.
crowds.
And we hear the crowds applauding there. As you can see, now we got the camera work on there.
Just
This
crowds of people crying.
is amazing. Here we are.
And celebrating this special moment.
It's still white, so...
There was a brief moment where we were a little unsure, but it is confirmed it is white smoke.
We have white smoke here. A smoke warning.
A smoke
And
warning,
that's
you're no
white
longer
smoke.
watching.
Oh my goodness, I was looking up.
We're back with Dr.
Come
Lizette.
back.
Dr. Levitt.
I'm still out of breath from racing up here. I can't believe it.
I'm actually
I'm flabbergasted.
surprised
honestly.
as well, because given the complexity of the reality we were talking about,
Exactly.
and the many issues and the diversity. But here we are, and look at our drone footage there. We're just cruising over the roof of the Sistine Chapel.
Wow.
We see the crowds.
The bells ringing.
The bells are ringing. It is 100% white
The
smoke.
white smoke. And I mean, as we were talking about before, the crowds are, it's the square's packed.
It's incredible.
And that's probably small compared to what's
Exactly.
going in now.
And that smoke just scared away our seagulls there, the little family there that was just relaxing on Sistine Chapel roof there.
But actually, as you mentioned at the beginning, TJ, it seemed like they did know. They came back just for the white smoke.
Indeed. In fact, and maybe they were giving us a kind of a secret a bit of information that they knew that we didn't know. But here we are, and then a spectacular, sunny, brilliant evening here, and you can even see from the perspective of the crowds there in St. Peter's Square, the white smoke billowing from the chimney, even as the sun starts going down behind the dome of St. Peter's there.
Thanks be to God.
Honestly.
And this smoke will last at least about 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes. And with a light breeze there in the square, we can see it billowing down towards the square. And we've got now basically about, it's going to be 45 minutes to at least an hour at least before the new Pope, just elected,
So before we will know.
to greet everyone. And so there's huge anticipation, naturally, of who will the new successor of St. Peter be.
Well, and I mean, as we were talking about before, you see the crowds filling the squares, but also the different people who have come. I mean, you can see the flags waving, people smiling. It's a big sign of the universality of the church, but then also just how supportive people are in sense of being here for this moment.
And now we're going to have an invasion of Romans. They're going to be coming in.
Yes.
And, no, it's only natural and normal. I mean, you live here. So those who can
He's
will
their
be.
bishop too.
What's that?
He's their bishop too.
Of course, he's their bishop.
There you go.
And so they're going to be streaming into the square now. It's going to be filling up.
It will make for some interesting traffic around my house because if my recollection is correct, when they couldn't get any further, they just left their cars in the road.
So there you are.
They were just there.
Just stop the car.
in the road. But, there's nowhere else to go.
That's
It's
true.
over here.
That's
So-
true.
Look at that billowing, thick white smoke there. All the different
I
flags.
love the people ready with their flags just in
Yes.
case.
Yes.
My daughter said that the election of Benedict XVI, her closest friend, they went to school right around the corner here, and her closest friend was German, and they went running out into the square, and out comes Joseph Watson, and she said her friend had this teeny tiny little teenage girl purse. She pulled out of this purse this flag, this enormous flag, it was suddenly waving.
Oh my goodness.
So apparently a lot of people come prepared.
Yeah, because you just never know. I mean, when I was in Square earlier, people thought, oh no, it might be a longer time. It could take days. You just don't know. You just don't know.
Yeah, you just don't know. In fact, I didn't know what to expect. At the same time, it's a wonderful surprise here to see the white smoke billowing there, and so after just day and a half, basically, and here we are.
It does make you feel like there's a wonderful sense of the noise stopped, the cameras went off, they went into the chapel, they prayed, and the Holy Spirit spoke. I mean, it just really gives us a great sense of confidence.
And indeed, this hope that's being realized, that we have a new shepherd, so to speak, someone to take on the reins there and to accompany us on this journey of our life journey. And it will be fascinating to see. As I say, you see the central lodge of St. Peter's Basilica. You see that's where the new pope will be appearing, as he traditionally does, to be announced that Abemus Papa, that we have a pope. And then the big surprise will be as he proceeds towards the central loggia, and we see who that cardinal is, now dressed in white.
Well, and for many people, they might be thinking, okay, why is there this long wait, as you mentioned, Thaddeus? Why is there this long wait in between when we see the white smoke and when the new pope, comes out into the loggia? And it's because there's a process that's going on right now.
There is a very long process, which will be the oath of allegiance of the cardinals, of which there are 132 now. And we saw how long it took for the oath to for the conclave. I'm imagining it will take about that length for the oath of allegiance.
Well, and also, Liz, you had mentioned before, way before in our discussion, the Room of Tears, which has become very essential right now. So right now the new pope would have gone, or is it after?
I would think that the ballots are burned after. I think he's already, and I think that's one of the reasons why this is kind of a funny hour.
Right.
As it got to be past 5, I was thinking, well, I guess now we have to wait until 7. But I think this must have been the time that he spent in that Room of Tears thinking about preparing himself for what is look at that square, and that square is just, it's a microcosm of the millions, if not billions, who are watching, all of them fixed to see, some of them already Christians, Catholics, but other people who are really searching. And there is so much searching going on in the world. And I don't know how many of the people that I've been working with in the secular media circles who talk about, well, I used to be Catholic, or I went to Catholic school, or I was an altar boy, or I was this. But they somehow feel this moment is still their own. It's a funny thing about those sacraments, right, Father? It's like, hard to get rid of those. And so he's also the father to those people, and to all the others who don't even know that they're orphaned yet. So
all the people we pray for on Good Fridays.
Exactly.
And there's also a real life need going on in the Room of Tears as well, because probably the tailors are very busy adjusting one of those cassocks to be able, for the new pope to be able to wear out onto the loggia.
Oh, and don't forget the barber. They keep a barber back there just in case he needs like a shave and a trim or something. Because like some of them show up scruffy for the conclave, they're not expecting it. So apparently we got a barber back there. Also sworn to see.
Like a hymn or anthem. To celebrate the occasion. It's part of the festivity of it, and we hear they're playing already and coming out there all in full uniform.
Well, it's special. It's special too because these last more than 2 weeks, we've had the Swiss Guards were present for certain things, but now they have a pope once again that they are protecting. That is their role, that is their mission, right? To be where the pope is and to protect him. And so this is extra special because now we see them coming out again to the piazza because we will have a pope.
Yes. I live with 21 other priests in a residence. All of us work in Korea. And we've been sharing at breakfast how hard it is in the morning when we're celebrating Mass, and there's always a prayer in the canon of the Mass for the Pope. And, we now have to skip over that. And it's like your tongue doesn't stop. So now we can pray once again for the Pope as well.
Exactly.
Well, our predecessor folks can pray for us as well.
Exactly.
Intercede in ways.
That I'm sure.
We hope and pray
for sure.
So again, the bands here will be coming in and playing the anthems, the hymns when the new pope appears, just like the Urbi et Orbi on the Easter, Christmas, or solemn occasions.
That's right.
And so it's to be expected at this time, and we'll probably have another, it's at least a half hour before earliest the new pope will appear from the second altar.
But also during this time too, there will be prayer too, and certainly the new Pope will be praying, but also the cardinals will be praying with him too.
And we will all be
Yes,
praying
of
as
course,
well.
yes,
Everyone in the
yes.
square will be
Yes,
praying
yes, exactly.
around the world. All of you watching and listening from home, you join in prayer as well for this moment. And
You can be sure even the new Pope hears all this in the background, because it's a lot of strong sound that's coming up there and propagating up into the areas there, in the buildings and just outside the loggia there as well. You can hear that, know that, experience it.
right,
The sounds of the streets, the sounds of the square.
Well, and it must be a sign of, I mean, they must feel encouraged hearing the cheers, the music, because this is a big moment for anyone, and then to come out into the loggia and see thousands upon thousands of people. I mean, if public speaking is not your thing, that would be very intimidating. And so to hear the support of the band and the people clapping and cheering must be extra special for that person.
Absolutely, a huge encouragement as well, apart from the weight of the office and accepting and realizing the challenge, the immense challenge that we'll be taking on, and responsibility, but encouraged by what is the fanfare we're seeing and hearing in St. Peter's Square right now. And as I mentioned, the crowds are filtering in. They do their security check before that, but the square is slowly filling up there with people coming in last minute to be here. Of course, they're lucky they have time, because we have about this almost 1 hour before the new Pope will appear. And so we see in the blue there the gendarmes, the Vatican gendarmes, and the band they have there, and then of course the Swiss Guard uniform there in position. So.
Well, and just again behind the scenes, looking back behind all the process that's happening, I think is so interesting to think we're seeing the crowds waiting, cheering, trying to keep spirits up while they wait the hour or more until we know who the Pope is. And I think, as we're talking about, prayer is also a central part of this aspect as well. I mean, before the
balcony, that loggia is what it's called, above the main door there that you see to St. Peter's Basilica.
Great. Christopher Altier right there with Crux. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the great insight you've given us, and I'm sure we're going to be hearing from you a little bit more as this new Pope comes out and certainly takes his role here in the next coming days right here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and we have more experts standing by, but I just want to point out, all of this, all of this going on right now, pomp and circumstance. I mean, and we're just waiting. We could be, he mentioned, maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour from finally seeing the new Pope who has been elected stand on that balcony. He will be dressed in papal vestments in what's called a white cassock, and he's going to be standing there. This will be his first appearance. This is going to be huge. This is going to be monumental, because we talked about Pope Francis's impact on not only the Catholic faith, but I'd say the world, really. I mean, he was loved. 250,000 people attending his funeral service there in that Sistine Chapel, standing outside of it, of course, people standing outside of it. But we sat here and we watched on Local News Live that weekend all of the people who went. President Donald Trump, former President Biden, the First Lady, all of them standing there in the front row, paying their respects to a man who was maybe only in power for 12 years, but certainly his impact is going to be much longer than that.
Yeah, and it's definitely will be, and it's going to be the impact of this next Pope will certainly be interesting. We talked to Christopher Altieri right there just a couple of minutes ago, pointing out a couple of big things. Vatican's finances, that's something that's going to be need to take in place. The administration of justice throughout the church, those two things really go down even to the lower levels. Even when you look at some of the archdioceses and things here at different cities around the country right here. But also, as he mentioned, we got 2 wars going. Now we have 3 wars going. We know Francis was very vocal about helping a lot of those innocent victims, those women, those children in Gaza and Ukraine. Now what is this new Pope going to have to do in order to make sure at least he's doing his part in maintaining world peace? So it's going to be very interesting, and his work is stacking up on him before he even knows it, really.
And I think one of the signs of that is the name that he decides to take on as Pope. Pope Francis, naming himself Francis after Assisi, Francis of Assisi. And he was somebody who was always helping helping the poor, and that's something that Pope Francis always helped people. So it'll be interesting to see what papal name this new Pope takes on. Right now, we said we are taking a look at different experts who are going to come on and give us some more insight right now. Let's go ahead and turn to Sandra Yoakum. She's Associate Professor of Faith and Culture at University of Dayton. Sandra, this news just coming down. A Pope has now been selected. What can we expect to happen next? We just saw some of the military come out and play some music.
Well, what we expect next is there to be this announcement, Habemus Papum, and the person, whoever the cardinal is who has been elected to be the Pope, will appear on the balcony and give his greetings to the crowd, the exuberant crowd that has gathered at St. Peter's in the square there. So that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting to hear who it is. And then, of course, I think you were just discussing this. What name will the new Pope choose to indicate maybe some of the direction of his pontificate?
And, we talked about the large crowds that came to Pope Francis's funeral. You see the large crowds right there in St. Peter's Square. Talk about how big of a deal this is, not only for the Catholic community, but for the world as a whole. Everybody follows what the Pope says, whether they follow it to a T or just peripherally.
Well, one of the things that has struck me, because I've been watching the crowd, it's like the whole world has come together. And everyone just looks so happy and so joyous. So there's that dimension of it that we anticipate someone who is going to lead us in ways. And I know you were talking before about, this commitment to the poor, to those who feel unwanted and the care for them, but then also this great hope that we'll have someone who will provide some encouragement for peace related to different conflicts. So I think there is that sense of here's someone who can give us a moral voice that appeals to and helps witness to our better selves. And so I think that's one of the things that everyone is looking for in the new Pope. And I think it was reflected in Pope Francis's words, not only his words, but in many ways, his actions.
Yeah, up until this moment, we have been in the time frame of what's called sedi vacante, which is meaning the vacant seat. It's the period before the conclave starts. And talk about the importance of this moment. So many people sad after the loss of Pope Francis just a day after he was on that very balcony and speaking to people on Easter Sunday. The next day he passed away. Talk about the importance of this moment right now that we're in.
Well, it's this moment of hope for the future, that this message of good news continues, and that it continues in a way that can reach across the globe. And I think that's part of what we see here is this kind of sense of anticipation and of hope for the future. And so as we await the announcement of exactly who is going to be the servant of the servants of the church, it's just a moment in which we think about all the wonderful possibilities in the words and actions of the new Pope.
And from the Cardinals' perspective, there's about a half dozen names that were really at the top right there. How big of a deal is this to them? Is this something that obviously they probably have striven their whole life to do? Or, talk about the impact it has on them personally.
Well, I think there are probably at least two feelings here. One feeling is a feeling of great responsibility, since each of them are called to vote. And they swear to vote in a way that reflects their commitment to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so I do think they all take this very seriously, that this really is about the future of the faith community and the handing on of the faith of Jesus Christ. And then the other is, I would suspect, at least maybe I'm thinking about myself, if I were put in that position of both the possibilities and the grave responsibility of being elected as the Pope and what that means. And so I think, that there is a sort of saying, as I understand it around the conclave, is that a person who's pursuing it is probably not the person that you want to be elected to be the Pope, but someone who is a little more reticent given the kinds of responsibilities, and in our ever more complicated world, ever more so in this particular time of the Church's life.
Yeah, this is just day 2 of the conclave. What does this symbolize for them to get it done so quickly? We have seen it be 2 days whenever it was Pope Francis. It took about 2 days for them, and I believe 5 votes to get Pope Francis elected. But in this moment, I mean, in 1268, it took almost 3 years. So for them to get it done in 2 days, what does this symbolize for the Church going forward, or maybe symbolize about the person that was chosen?
I think that's a really interesting question. I will be honest and say I didn't anticipate that it would come today. I actually thought it would come tomorrow. So that perhaps it indicates, and this is a perhaps, it indicates that the cardinals had a better sense than we all realized about whom they wanted to become the next pope. And so the question that I think will remain to be answered is whether they thought that maybe there's a kind of firm commitment to continue in the ways of Pope Francis, or to modify that in some way. And so that's the question that I think waits to be answered when we see who the person is that the cardinals have elected.
And here on Local News Live, we're everywhere across the world, but we have a primarily, obviously, U.S. Viewership. What are something that American Catholics really want to see out of the next Pope? How can he really make an impact here at home?
Well, I think that there's not a single answer for that. I think that there are some Catholics in the U.S. who would like to see a Pope who is less who may be a little more reticent to greet people whom they consider to be not someone who is fully a member of the church. So I think there's those who would like to see, I hesitate to use the word traditional because in many ways Pope Francis was very traditional. He was very much committed to the gospel. And as you all said, the gospel that serves the poor, that reaches out to those who feel marginalized. And that's very much a part of what Jesus did, as we know from the Gospels. And then I think there are others who are hoping that the Pope will continue to be this voice that calls us to a deeper sense of God's presence in our lives, and also calls us to really be witnesses and disciples who bring God's mercy into the world.
Sandra Yoakum.
That's what I'm hoping for, but and I think there are many other American Catholics who share that hope.
Well, we can see so many people excited there in Vatican City. Sandra Yoakum, Associate Professor of Faith and Culture at University of Dayton, thank you so much for your insight. We'll do our best to get you back on. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And to recap everything and bring everybody back up to speed, so a little bit after 12 o'clock Eastern time, white smoke began billowing out of the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican right there. That means a new pope was selected. Since then, we've seen crowd build up even more than it was probably 40 or 35 minutes ago. So a lot of joyous occasion out there. Everybody seems to be jubilant. We see the ceremony and the circumstances happen. I'm sure we're about to learn who the new pope is here in just a couple of minutes.
Things seem to move very quickly after that white smoke, and then we saw the bells, and then we saw, those bells kind of call people to Vatican City. They're calling people and saying, hey, we have a new pope selected. a lot of people, as Sandra just mentioned, our expert that we just had on, she said, I did not expect it to come down on Thursday. I don't think any of us expected it. Maybe Friday, maybe beyond, but she mentioned, you know, this is a time, we talked about sedi vacante, that being a time where it has a vacant seat. It seems like just, 2 weeks ago, Pope Francis was laid to rest, and now a new Pope. We're going to have to wait and see what direction this Pope wants to take the Catholic faith. But you mentioned it's not just Catholic people, but this person who holds this position has a lot of influence on the rest of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people look to them. And we're going to be looking at Christopher Altier right here as he rejoins us now. We're bringing him back on, one of our experts right here. Now, Christopher, I know when we talked to you earlier, you said it'd be about 40 minutes to an hour. We're kind of approaching that time period right here. Tell me a little bit about what you're seeing. Tell me about a little bit about what you're feeling as well as all this is going on.
Boy, I feel a bit like a kid at Christmas, you know. This is always exciting, and I like to play the part of, you know, the jaded and wizened old fella. But this is the sort of thing that, well, I guess it gets my motor running, you know. And I said to a colleague earlier who was asking me whether I had any inside information. I had the inside track. I did not. To be honest, I thought that this thing was going to stretch into tomorrow and maybe even into tomorrow afternoon. I won't tell you who I think it's going to be. I'm going to play those cards pretty close to my vest.
Right.
Yeah, Christopher.
But if you were to twist my arm, the guy I thought they were going to go for was going to be Cardinal Zuppi, Matteo Cardinal Zuppi, the Cardinal Archbishop of Bologna. But we're about to find out whether I'm right. So we could sit tight and hang on. I may have said to you guys that.
Tell us a little bit about when this new Pope chooses a name. Talk about the significance of choosing a name. We spoke earlier about Pope Francis naming himself after Francis of Assisi. What does this name kind of do? Does it set the tone for his papacy?
Boy, that's an interesting question. It could, but not necessarily in the way that one might imagine. For example, the new guy could pick Francis II, let's say, and he may do that as much in order to distance himself from Francis I as to announce or to telegraph an intention to continue his legacy. You know, if they have gone with a guy like Cardinal Pizzaballa, it may be actually just a continuation of the evocation of Saint Francis of Assisi. There are 1,000,001 reasons that I think will emerge and become apparent as the new pontificate itself unfolds, and we see how the personality of the man who came into the office informs the office and his conduct of it. I wouldn't fall out of my chair to see the new Pope go back to a name that we haven't seen for a while, just in order to sort of hit a reset, if you will. I wouldn't fall out of my chair to see it be something like Innocent. The last time we had a Pope Innocent, it was Innocent the 13th, and that would have been in the 1720s.
Yeah.
So
we talk about the meaning of conclave, meaning with a key. Talk about how sacred this process is. We don't know who's inside. I mean, we got to see at the very beginning on the conclave, the very first day of the conclave, we saw their faces. We don't really know them personally, but talk about how symbolic and how secretive this conclave process is.
Well, the people who participate in it, both the electors and the very, very few who are inside assisting, all swear a solemn oath before God and their fellow man never to disclose the business that unfolds, right? I don't think it gets more serious than that, right? Now, that said, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, as we say, and there are hints, indiscretions, and capable journalists with an in here and there can piece things together, and we've come to learn some things about earlier conclaves. Sometimes there's archival records and things that do appear also that can shed some light. Notes, diaries, et cetera, that can be found, can be shared, can be lost. All of those things can happen to inform our understanding of what went on. But, they certainly understand the need for discretion and even for secrecy. It does add to the mystique, but it also creates a space of freedom for the men to do what they promise to do, which is choose the guy that they think is going to be best for the job and to do so as much as possible without fear or favor.
And talk about the attention this new Pope, this conclave, obviously Pope Francis's death has received. Have you seen more people re-engaged in the Catholic Church and exactly who the new Pope is? Would this be the same as last time or less? What would you say?
I think any time a major world figure like the Pope, and he is, right? Whether you like him or not, he is a major world figure, and the office, right, is important. I don't think that there's a bullier bully pulpit than the one the Pope has. And the Pope, whoever he is going to be one of the most recognized faces, if not the most recognized face in the world, and that's a fact. So a papal transition, a change, is going to garner attention. I think that savvy and smart churchmen are going to see this as an opportunity to harness a bit of interest, right? Never shake a stick at free money.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing thousands of people flock to Vatican City. I mean, have we ever seen anything like this? I mean, as Brian just mentioned, he said, 250,000 people at the funeral. But I mean, is this typical, this scene that we are seeing right now?
Sure, but 250,000 people at the funeral, if you stop and look at more recent papal funerals, there were millions, plural, on hand for John Paul II's, significantly more than 250,000, that's for sure. So just by the numbers, it was about right for a papal funeral. We've seen these sorts of numbers before, and we've seen this sort of interest before. Yes. And how many times have we been through this? Well, the next guy is going to be the 266th successor to St. Peter.
Yeah, one of the things inside where the cardinals take that vote, they're supposed to vote with what's called divine inspiration. What does that mean? Can you explain that for our viewers?
Well, I think I would want to be a little bit more precise. They ask for and hopefully are attuned to the guidance of the Holy Spirit when they cast their ballot, but they are very much deliberating and discerning. They're not disengaging their intellect or their senses, right? And they're sizing each other up, and they're wondering whether who the best guy for the job in this moment really is. And the job is very much a job. So their work is more of attunement, I would say. And sometimes we can look and say they get it right, and they don't always, line up perfectly well. Joseph Ratzinger, who became Benedict XVI, put it best when he talked about Catholic understanding of the role of the Holy Spirit in the conclave as a sort of a negative guarantee. The most we could say, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I think fairly accurately, the most we could say is that the Holy Spirit guarantees that whoever the cardinals pick won't make a complete disaster of things. the cardinals, that's why we pray for the cardinals, right? If they had a straight, direct line on the Holy Spirit, it would be rather superfluous, right? We pray that they do the work of discernment well and that they are attuned to the Holy Spirit. But these are men; they have very much feet of clay.
And going on that point right there, what goes through the Cardinals' minds when they are trying to weigh this out? Now, everybody comes from a different part of the world, different part of certain countries, this and that. Do some of those maybe, I don't want to say hyper-local, but more local-ish issues weigh in on who they want to vote for?
Absolutely. I wouldn't say that there is regionalism or sectionalism the way that there might be in a large participatory republic, but this is very much a political fact, right? Although not political in the way that we think of our own local Republican elections, little r Republican, right? It really is fascinating. One of the reasons and one of the things that Francis did was draw cardinals from all around the world. He created cardinals from places that had never had one before. And the body of cardinal electors, therefore, perhaps does a measurably better job of representing the universal, the worldwide, the global church to herself in that conclave, if that makes sense. And in the general congregations, which are those meetings of the College of Cardinals, both those who are going to be participating in the election and the men who have already reached the age of 80 and have aged out of the conclave, they participate as well in those. And there are, several days of those in the run-up to the conclave. And these are pretty open and freewheeling conversations in which every voice is heard. And one of the reasons the cardinals have those meetings is so that everyone gets a chance to say his piece and to bring his concerns to the body of men who are going to be making the decision.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see so much symbolism today. Could you kind of break down what we're going to see when he steps up on that balcony? We know that he's going to be dressed in certain things. He's going to be handed the ring of the fisherman. Could you kind of talk about some of the symbolism that comes with even what he'll be wearing when he presents himself?
The ring of the fisherman is interesting. Yes, he should be wearing, although we'll see, Pope Francis surprised us by not wearing the red mozzetta. That's that sort of the red shoulder cape. He didn't wear that. He will be wearing a very heavy blood red stole, and it is a remarkable garment that is powerfully evocative of the sanctity, the sacredness, I should say, that is the office in the strict etymological sense is one that is set apart, right? And of the weight, the burden of the office that he's putting on. The white cassock, which has become traditional papal garb, for several hundred years, ever since a Dominican religious was elected to the papacy, and Dominicans wear white as a matter of course. That's their habit, as we say. And he didn't change his, the white cassock then stuck thenceforward and persists down to the present. Each and every bit of what he's going to be wearing, including, yes, you mentioned his jewelry, the ring of the fisherman. People will remember their Sunday school that St. Peter, the chief of the apostles, was a fisherman, and Peter in the earliest days of the church came eventually to lead the church in Rome, and the Pope, the Bishop of Rome, is the Pope, the successor to St. Peter, and so the ring of office that he wears is called the ring of the fisherman, in recollection of St. Peter, the city's first bishop.
And we know, obviously, the role is immense. Talk about what it's like on the Pope himself. We know Pope Benedict had stepped down. He didn't die in office, per se, due to just the physical and the mental demands. How hard is it to be the Pope on the man themselves?
There isn't money in the world You couldn't get me to do it. My favorite story about this is of John the 23rd, Pope Saint John the 23rd, who was the Pope who called the Second Vatican Ecumenical Council. He was elected in 1958 after a momentous and very long pontificate of his predecessor, Pius XII, who served through the years of the Second World War and then all through the 1950s until 1958. Well, John the 23rd, it is said, would, with a stack of paperwork on his desk, and he'd get lost in it, and suddenly he realized it was 10 o'clock at night or 10:30 or whatever, and he'd just sort of throw up his hands and say, "It's your church, Lord, I'm going to bed."
Now, as this is all unfolding right now, the cardinals are still sequestered right now. Could you talk to our viewers a little bit about what's happening? I know the practice of adoration is probably taking place. Could you explain what all that entails?
Oh, sure. Goodness, it is something that I'm quite sure there are people doing around the world. Catholics practice a kind of devotion called eucharistic adoration. Now, you know, we Catholics do believe that in the sacrament of the Eucharist, under the species of bread and wine, what we really have are the substance of God himself, that Jesus Christ our Lord is present, body, blood, soul, and divinity in the most holy sacrament of the altar, and God makes himself available to us sacramentally, and we will have a host in a special a display case called a monstrance, and people will just sit in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament that way, sit in the presence of our Lord, sacramentally present to them, just be with him in that way. Many of us do this, for a few minutes a day, a couple of times a week. Sometimes people will like to try to carve out an hour to spend before the Blessed Sacrament. And in just about every diocese in the United States these days, you'll find at least one parish that will have adoration going at any time of the day or night. If you're interested in looking that up, but that's what that is. And it's a way for Catholics to support each other. Maybe you'll bring a specific intention, like a prayer for the new Pope, right? You want to ask God to look out for the guy because he's got a tough job to do. Or you might just have had a rough week, or maybe you want to give thanks because you had a good one. So you want to spend some time in gratitude. There's a zillion different reasons that Catholics might bring themselves to adoration. And really, one of the great things about that practice is you don't need a reason at all in order to do it. You could just show up because that's what you felt like doing on that day and didn't have any other obligation.
And Christopher, obviously we're still waiting. We're expecting the Pope to walk out any minute now. You were out in the crowds, I'm assuming, during some of the other ones, correct? What was that like, being there physically in Vatican City when all this was happening?
I was in Rome. I guess technically, yes, I would have been in Vatican City because I was inside the city limits on the night that the cardinals elected Pope Benedict the 16th. That sounds right. Don't quote me on that. All right, guys. But I was at Vatican Radio covering the election from the newsroom, actually, when we got the announcement that when we heard the Habemus Papam in that case. So I was the Vatican Radio offices, or the offices of what was then styled Vatican Radio, if you have your back to St. Peter's Basilica and look all the way down that long boulevard that is now filling up with people, at the far end of it on the left is where the Vatican Radio studios are. And I was there in the newsroom overlooking that street.
And Chris, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, only because I watched the movie recently, Conclave. It has gone up about 283% of an increase since Pope Francis died. Everybody is so curious about this process. How similar, if you've seen the movie, how similar is it to what is going on inside?
I have seen the movie, and how can I put this? The film is beautifully shot. There are some great actors who give some tremendous performances, but if I'm being perfectly frank, the inaccuracies and even some of the, I don't want to spoil anything, but pretty egregious mistakes that they made just about the law that governs the way conclaves work. Sort of took me out of it, as did some of the mistakes they made with the way that people were dressed at certain moments and things like that. But I don't want to nitpick about that sort of thing. That your mileage may vary on the picture, but was not my favorite, despite some beautiful work technically and in terms of the performances.
And for the cardinals who go to the Vatican, obviously, for this ceremony, I'm sure some of them maybe have gone like once or twice. What's it like for them going through the process, even the ones who have no shot of being Pope? What's it like going through the process and going to the Vatican and helping be a part of the kind of the new direction of the church?
Well, the cardinals are all, this isn't their first time in Rome for any of them, I'd warrant. Nobody received his red hat by post, right?
Right.
So I do think that, pardon me, the excitement and the emotion of it are powerful. I think, as are many great and momentous occasions for all of us. On the day, you get down to business, you grind it out, you get it through, and you have that adrenaline that keeps with you until a little bit, and you never quite know when the adrenaline drop is going to hit, and what you feel afterwards is more relief than anything else, no matter how well it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I know.
I imagine they're going through that, but they go in, remember, that, and they chant this beautiful ancient prayer invoking the Holy Spirit, the Veni Creator, asking for guidance and illumination and support, the gifts of wisdom, discernment, understanding that come and that are very much necessary in order to make any sort of choice in any matter, great or small. But there's not a bigger choice than the one these guys have to make. And they do it before the last judgment, right? This magnificent painting of Michelangelo, and they know that they will have to answer to God for the way that they discharge their duty in this occasion. That's powerful, heady stuff. I don't know that I would bear up very well under it.
Yeah, I know. It's a difficult process to be a part of. I know out of 133 of the cardinals, about 108 of them were put into place by Pope Francis. How much of an impact do you think it has on this process?
That's a really good question. I think we'll see. I don't think it necessarily will have had as much of an impact on the process directly as one might think, and certainly not in the way that one might expect. You know, if you hear that Francis appointed 108 of the 133 cardinal electors, you might think, well, did he stack it with his own guys? I don't think Francis did that. I don't think he possibly could have. I don't think that he was so much vetting his choices for ideological affinity as he was choosing men who would come from places that would represent the universality of the church in her diversity to herself in the college on the day, as it were.
And I know this is a religious process, but in a lot of ways it's also a political one, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think I talked a little bit about that earlier, but I'm glad of the opportunity to be able to say more about it. People who say that the election of a pope is not political, I think usually mean that, well, it's not political in the sense that our American or generally speaking Western elections are political. And that's very true. It certainly is fair enough. But if the fundamental question of politics is how shall we order our lives together, the question that cardinals have when they come in is, well, who are we going to pick to be our ruler in faith? And viewed through that lens, I don't think the question can be more political, right? It's just a matter of how you understand it and how you calibrate it. And, you know, as you mentioned also very insightfully and astutely, I think, because the cardinals come from so many different places around the world and bring their own particular concerns to the table and to the conversation, there's a balancing act that has to be done. And the consensus that is going to be built around a candidate, because remember, in order to be elected, a fellow needs needs a two-thirds majority, right? Mm-hmm. So it needs the support of 2/3 of the cardinals in the room. That's 90 of 133. You know, mathematically, I suppose it's a little bit less than that, but nobody can split his vote. So we'll call it 90. It needs to be somebody with whom, you know, not necessarily 90 people are over the moon thrilled, but, you know, 90 people are going to be able to live with the choice, right? That's not easy, you know. I can't get, you know, a group of 2 children and a couple of nieces and nephews to decide on what they want, to agree on what they want for dinner.
Right. And when we see the new Pope right up there on that balcony in just a couple of minutes, hopefully, what will we immediately learn about the process and maybe the next steps here? We're going to learn anything like right off the bat just based on who they are?
Well, we're going to have to unpack the choice. We're going to learn, I think, a very good
Here we go. Here's the Pope coming out right now, so I guess you can give some real-time
feedback.
What
we are going to see the Cardinal Protodeacon, who is going to come out and make the announcement. This should be Cardinal Dominique Lamberti, unless, of course, they've elected him, which I don't think they will have done, but, you know...
Annuncio vobis gaudium manium. Habemus papam. Eminentissimum, ac reverendissimum Dominum, Dominum Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae Cardinalem Prevost. Qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem decimum quartum.
So, it's Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who's taken the name of Leo XIV, Pope Leo XIV. Cardinal Prevost is an American, and he spent most of his ministry in Latin America and in Peru. And
Astounding, ladies and gentlemen. The new Pope is Robert Francis Prevost, an American. He has taken the name of Leo the 14th.
Provincial in Latin America, and then
all right, you heard it there. Pope Leo the 14th is the name that he has chosen for his papal name. You just saw him there. The crowd, they started cheering. You saw the crowd super excited about it. He was speaking there in Latin. Another pope from the Americas, I believe from America.
He's American, yep.
Yeah, Leo the 14th.
His real name, Robert Francis Prevost, right here, and yeah, obviously we're about to see him.
Yeah, he's an American. He has been a missionary. He's a religious cleric.
I mean, how huge is that for an American?
This
to take
is
this position?
goodness, guys. It takes you've seen it takes something to put me to make me speechless. But this is something.
Was this who you were
my
expecting?
Goodness
at
gracious
all?
sakes alive!
Is this who you were expecting, Chris?
You may fairly say that it was not.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how symbolic is that moment right there? Him coming out, hearing those cheers. Talk about the symbolism of this very moment.
Well, I can talk about the symbolism, but this is a very, very significant moment in very real, practical, nuts and bolts ways. Pope Leo XIV, the man who was born to the world, Robert Francis Prevost, an Augustinian priest, and who has been the prefect of the Congregation for Bishops, or the dicastery for bishops in Rome under Pope Francis, was not the fellow that I think I or anyone was expecting to be elected. Because it brings, well, that the Pope would come from the United States, that was not on anybody's bingo card. And I got to admit, I'm processing this, right?
Right.
It really is something. The symbolic significance of his name, I think, is something we shouldn't discount. Leo the 14th, he's following Leo the 13th, who in many ways was the father of Catholic social teaching in the modern era. Leo, by the way, is Latin for lion. And it is a striking choice. The choice of names and the choice of the cardinals for this fellow is not something that I expected to see in my lifetime.
Wow, huge moment right here, especially for American Catholics. And
I expected to see, several popes elected in my lifetime. I didn't ever expect. Not in another 100 years for a pope from the United States to be elected.
Yeah, this is the first American pope. We're getting a little bit more information.
Well, I think, just to be fair, I think our friends in South America would quibble with you on that.
Yeah, he's part Peruvian.
First, yes, United States. So
Born in
the first pope from the United States. Yes.
Right. Born in Chicago.
In fairness, yeah, that Pope Francis came from Argentina, right?
Right. Yeah, he did come from Argentina, and we know Leo XIV from Chicago. Attended Villanova University, too, so definitely strong American ties right here. Now, I know he wasn't the person that you were expecting, but what do you know about what his visions are and maybe some of the things that he believes in that could relate to his
I think actually that my profile actually fits pretty well. Pope Leo, when he was Cardinal Prevost, he was an institutionalist with experience, again, as a missionary and experience with the Roman system of government. He knows how the machinery of Roman government is, the Roman machinery of church government, I mean, right? How it's supposed to work, but he was never a cog in the Roman machine, right?
And is that good or bad? You know, in the sense for Catholics, you know.
Boy, is it good or bad? I think it's a choice, and I think generally it's good if a guy, remember, and the papacy, whoever is pope, right? The papacy itself is an office of government, and so it is generally good for the people who occupy the office to have an idea of how the government is supposed to work, right? So in that sense, it's good.
Well, what we do know is that Pope Leo XIV is 69 years old. He's from Chicago. He spent some time ministering in Peru. Talk about how you think his missionary work can translate in his new position.
I'm quite sure that it will inform his new work in countless ways, only some of which will he and will we be able instantly and immediately to discern. It's the choice of name that really is interesting to me, Leo XIV. I wonder whether this is not signaling a return to a sort of ground-up rethinking of the church's whole social teaching in light of the gospel in the 21st century. That would be fascinating. I'm not saying that's what it means. I'm not saying that that's what it isn't or what it doesn't. But this really is something that's just remarkable.
And I know, obviously, you're still taking a lot of the moment in, and you're still doing this. How, will this selection be perceived? Now, obviously, it's a big deal for us here in the Americas, whether you're in North America, South America, but what about the rest of the world? You know, how would this be perceived? And what are you hearing, if anything, so far? I know it's still pretty fresh, a couple of minutes ago.
Well, I've been talking to you guys, haven't I?
Right.
And it is very fresh, and I think a lot of people are doing exactly what I'm doing. I knew who Cardinal Prevost was, or the man who's now, I should say, the man we now know by Leo XIV, right? I do think that there's a lot to say that's interesting about this choice. Cardinal Prevost had his record of leadership, especially as far as his management of cases of abuse and cover-up in the church, pretty thoroughly vetted, and there have been some questions about how well he's handled certain cases here and there. I think, by the way, I say that not to stir up controversy before we've even had the man come out and give us his blessing,
right.
But to say that this is clearly something that was on the minds of the cardinal electors, right? And here we go.
Take this moment in and see what's to come next. Okay. There he is, dressed in his papal vestments. Pope.
How amazing.
How amazing.
And Dr. Liz Love was also talking about the the symbolism of the red that he's wearing. You know, it is a sacrificial role, and that is the symbol of the cloth that he's wearing right now.
We are right here. Chris Altier, who we've been with for a while. We are closing him out for right now, but here is Pope Leo the 14th, the first glimpses of him, obviously, in his papal garb right here. We're expected to hear from him here in just a few minutes. He is of American and Peruvian descent, so obviously a big deal for us here
from Chicago.
In the Americas. Born in Chicago, attended Villanova University. Many Americans attended universities across the country. So let's listen into the new Pope right here as he begins to speak.
For him.
On his face.
You can see it on his face.
Amazing.
After this,
you see his eyes filled with tears. I mean, you become a cardinal. That's already a huge deal.
Right.
He probably never thought he would be the first Pope from the United States of America. 69 years old. He was born Robert Francis Prevost. I mean, obviously, such an emotional moment, not only for him, but you see thousands of people in Vatican City that have flocked to the outside of that Sistine Chapel. This is a moment. We've been talking about it for the past hour or so. This was, up until this moment, sedi vacante, a time period of a vacant seat. A lot of Catholics obviously mourning the loss of Pope Francis, who had such a big impact not only in the church, but around the world.
And all this happening within really the past hour and 10 minutes, just a little bit after 12 o'clock Eastern time. We saw that white smoke billowing from the Sistine Chapel, signaling that a new pope had been selected. We saw the crowds, which are already large, there in St. Peter's Square right there, becoming happy. You know, you saw it's a joyous occasion. That crowd has since grown in the hour and 10 plus since that white smoke began to come out. We've gotten a lot of insight. We've now learned who the new pope is. You know, Leo the 14th. We're very excited and interested, along with the rest of the world, to see exactly where he takes his papacy, what he plans to do. He's really taken in this moment, and we'll let you take it in for a couple of moments as well, as he's still there waving there at the Vatican.
You see he's dressed in a white, what's called a white cassock. And you see, we just spoke to Chris Altier, and he mentioned, you know, him wearing that red is symbolizing the burden that he takes on as the Pope. Of course, there are wonderful things that he's able to do, but it is a heavy job.
Let's listen in.
La pace sia con tutti voi. Fratelli, sorelle carissimi, questo è il primo saluto del Cristo risorto, il buon pastore che ha dato la vita per il gregge di Dio. Anch'io vorrei che questo saluto di pace entrasse nel vostro cuore, raggiungesse le vostre famiglie, a tutte le persone, ovunque siano, a tutti i popoli, a tutta la terra. La pace sia con voi.
We're just hearing the first words of Pope Leo XIV.
Questa è la pace di Cristo risorto, una pace disarmata e una pace disarmante, umile e perseverante. Proviene da Dio, Dio che ci ama a tutti, incondizionatamente. Ancora conserviamo nei nostri orecchi quella voce debole ma sempre coraggiosa di Papa Francesco, che benediva a Roma. Il Papa che benediva Roma dava la sua benedizione al mondo intero, quella mattina del giorno di Pasqua. Consentitemi di dar seguito a quella stessa benedizione. Dio ci vuole bene, Dio vi ama tutti.
God loves everyone.
E il male non prevarrà.
Evil will not prevail. We are all in the hands of God. So without fear, united, hand in hand, with God and among ourselves, we go forward. We are disciples of Christ. Christ goes before us. The world needs his light. Humanity needs him but as the bridge between God and his love. May we all build bridges with dialogue and encounter so that we can all be one people, all in peace. Thank you, Pope Francis, for all you've done. We're hearing the first words here of Pope Leo XIV, just elected Pope.
Voglio ringraziare anche tutti i confratelli cardinali che hanno scelto me per essere successore di Pietro e camminare insieme a voi come Chiesa unita, cercando sempre la pace, la giustizia,
searching all together for peace and justice, and working together, men and women faithful to Christ, without fear, to proclaim the gospel, to be missionaries. Pope Leo offering these initial words, which we're just translating on the fly here. I'm a son of St. Augustine, and I'm an Augustinian. Who said, with you I am a Christian, and for you I am a bishop. So may we all walk together towards that, to the place that God has prepared for us. May we walk together, accompany each other. To the Church of Rome, a special greeting. As Bishop of Rome, of course, a special greeting. We've got to look at how we can together be a missionary church, a church that builds bridges, that is always open to receive everyone, just like in this square, to receive everyone, to welcome everyone. Our charity, our dialogue and love. And now, a greeting in Spanish. Please allow me here to
so to all of you, but especially to the people of my diocese of Chiclayo in Peru,
donde un pueblo fiel ha acompañado a su obispo, ha compartido su fe y ha dado tanto para
where we had such faithful people accompanying the bishop, and we had such faithful people helping the bishop. To all of you, the people of Rome and of Italy, we need to be a synodal church, a church that's a pilgrim, that shows charity always, and especially is charitable to those who are suffering. Today, today is the day of praying to the Madonna of Pompeii. Our Blessed Mother Mary always wants to be close to us. She always wants to intercede for us through her love. So
per questa nuova missione,
let us pray together for this new mission, for all of the church, for peace in the world,
chiediamo questa grazia speciale
that she will help us give us a special grace, our mother.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia.
Hail Mary,
il
full of
Signore
grace,
con
the
te.
Lord is with you.
Tu sei benedetta fra le
You are
donne,
blessed among
e
women,
benedetto è il frutto del
and
tuo
blessed is
seno,
the fruit of
Gesù.
your womb, Jesus.
Santa Maria,
Holy
Madre
Mary,
di Dio,
Mother of God,
prega per noi peccatori,
pray for us sinners,
adesso e nell'ora
now
della
and at the
nostra
end hour of our
morte.
death.
Amen.
Amen.
Pope Leo XIV there.
Pope Leo XIV, very interesting. A few themes coming out already there from his first piece, talking about peace.
Indeed, saying a greeting of peace. May my greeting of peace enter into your hearts and reach your families. All people, wherever you are, all peoples of the entire planet.
Right.
May peace be with you. God's peace be with you, he said. And here we see him.
And that was Pope Leo XIV right there, delivering his traditional blessing, the Urbi et Orbi. And in that, he gave a message of being, building bridges, and inviting people into the church. And I think he did a great job. First thing he did was give that in different languages to make sure everybody understood. Also gave homage to his Peruvian roots right there, where he's also, American, but also Peruvian background when he did a lot of missionary work. So a very special blessing right there.
And that voice you viewers were hearing was from the Vatican, the translation. I like that he talked about unity. It was a very a symbolic moment for so many reasons. I mean, he echoed a lot of the things that Pope Francis really cared about. He said, we should be a missionary church, a church that builds bridges. And one thing that stood out to me was that he said we should accept everyone. We know, I hate to draw the comparisons as we have a new Pope, but I mean, we know Pope Francis was about accepting everyone. When he took that very stage on that balcony 12 years ago, he talked about accepting LGBTQ people into the faith, the Catholic faith, and bringing light to women, allowing women to be more central. Let's go ahead and listen to what Pope Leo XIV has to say. He's continuing.
Precibus et meritis Beate Mariae semper Virginis.
And we also pray to the Blessed Mary, to Saint John.
Misereatur vestri omnipotens Deus, et dimissis omnibus peccatis vestris, perducat vos Iesus Christus ad vitam aeternam. Indulgam, absolutionem, et remissionem omnium peccatorum vestrorum, spatium vere et fructuose penitentiae, cor semper penitens, et emendationem vitae, gratiam et consolationem Sancti Spiritus, et finalem perseverantiam in bonis operibus tribuat vobis omnipotens et misericors Dominus. Amen. Et benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti descendat super vos et maniat semper.
Just heard his blessing to the world, the Urbi Orbi there, him taking this victory lap, essentially, waving to the crowd that has been so anxiously waiting for a new pope. We didn't know that it would come Thursday on day 2 of the conclave. Of course, it was a very quick conclave as well.
And obviously, crowds receptive to his message right there. You see so many flags out there, once again, talking about inviting people into the church and building those bridges. We're looking at Colombia, you're looking at America, you're looking at European countries right there. So obviously, the masses taking in what he had to say and taking in his first message as Pope. And obviously, people are anxious to see what he's going to do next and putting those words into action. Now, following this, there's going to be a celebratory mass here in the next couple of days here, obviously continuing to solidify his papacy. After that, taking possession of the Lantern Basilica as another tradition as he gets warmed up and gets into his role here as the Pope. So it's going to be very interesting to see a lot of people excited about what he can bring, and obviously he has his work cut out for him. Pope Francis very busy towards the end, and Pope Leo XIV will be very busy as he begins his papacy right here, as you can hear the band starting to play, and you can see the Pope taking in the last images of the crowds there at St. Peter's Square at the Vatican.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much going on right now around the world. As we talked about it with Christopher Altier, he said, you know, there's so much going on and I would not want to be in this position because it is a tough position. Again, that is why he's wearing that red. He understands it symbolizes, you know, the difficulties that he could face in this papacy. Of course, you always, you know, wish them the best, but this is a difficult job. But not only are you, you know, in charge of the Catholic Church, but what you do kind of sets a tone for Catholics around the world.
Right, and that's the big deal because so many Catholics, so many people going through so many different things, whether it be here in America, whether it's in South America. Obviously, we have now 3 wars happening, one of which started while they were in conclave right there, so I'm sure he's learned about it now. But, you know, in terms of what's next for him and what he has to say and how he feels about that, I'm sure we'll learn here the next coming days as he continues to react to that. So there's a lot of news right here to back everything up. Everything happened. We saw white smoke billowing out of the Sistine Chapel about a little bit after 12 o'clock Eastern time. And obviously we saw the new Pope there. He's just going back inside the Vatican, back inside that Sistine Chapel there. After we just heard from him and he gave his blessing right there where he addressed what his intentions are and obviously his welcome, his introduction to the world and obviously Catholics across the country.
Yeah, and this just in, President Donald Trump is now responding and reacting to this. He says, congratulations to Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who was just named Pope. It is such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope. What excitement and what a great honor for our country. I look forward to meeting Pope Leo XIV. It will be a very meaningful moment. And we know President Donald Trump was just in Rome a couple weeks ago for the late Pope Francis's funeral. He's had some bit of moments of contention with the Catholic Church, being that, you know, he just posted on his official Instagram a picture of him depicted as the Pope. Of course, a lot of Catholics upset about that. On this day, he's very joyous, saying that he's excited to see and to meet the new Pope who is from America. And so many people across the country reacting. We're getting reaction into our newsroom from many of them.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because J.D. Vance was the last world leader, one of the last world leaders to meet with Pope Francis. So now Donald Trump obviously weighing in on the new Pope, someone who I'm sure he'll be well acquainted with in the next coming months here as the papacy begins for Leo XIV right there. And you see the crowd still out there, even though the Pope has now returned inside of the Vatican, inside, you know, outside of, out of view.
Chapel,
the Sistine Chapel. Out of view there, you see the bells going, you see the crowds once again. You know, there'll be some more celebratory days here in Vatican City before it's back to business as usual. But obviously, the Catholic Church has a new direction. They have a new leader, and that's something obviously the world can celebrate now after a couple of weeks of mourning, quite frankly. So everybody's excited. That anxiety, those answers are slowly beginning to get answered one by one. The smoke, now we know him. Now we know what he stands for. Now we're excited to see exactly what he's about right here. And I'm sure we're going to get more reaction from people across the world, too, as that continues to pour in.
I think a lot of people are interested to see what his first act of business will be.
Right.
And that sets the tone for his papacy. What are the issues he cares about most? Which direction should the Catholic Church go in? So many people around the world. He is the first in the Catholic Church 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church to be from the United States of America. We know Pope Francis was from Latin America, the first from the Americas, but he is the first American from the United States to hold this position. So I'm sure that probably comes with another type of weight to it as well.
Oh, absolutely. And you heard we had Chris Altier on just a little bit ago. He's really been with us the past hour and a half. Really, as we've continued coverage here from Vatican City, and I mean, he was stunned. I mean, he was speechless, and as we know, you know, obviously jokingly, he's a man of many words.
Yeah.
And to leave him speechless, obviously, this is not a big deal. This is a huge deal for American Catholics, for Western Catholics, obviously, from the Americas as a whole. I'm sure they're celebrating down, in Peru, where he has obviously done a lot of work and he has some heritage from as well. So this is a huge deal for Catholics and to get someone of your own, selected as the Pope. At 2/3 vote, it took of all 133 cardinals, so that's no small feat right there. And it did take a long time, per se, a couple of days, but like I said, even Chris was expecting it to go at least tomorrow afternoon.
Right. I mean, we know that the longest conclave has taken almost 3 years. This dates back to 1268, a very long time ago. And honestly, it changed the way that they did the entire process after that situation happened. Nobody wants to stay there for 3 years being sequestered.
No.
So obviously these cardinals, 133 of them, they had their eye on the prize. They had a very clear and concise way of doing things for them to not even get to the fourth vote of the day. I don't believe that this was the fourth vote of the day. They were sent there to vote 4 times a day, 2 times in the morning, twice in the afternoon. And so quickly for this to come out. And this isn't atypical. Pope Francis was able to get it done in about 5 votes on the second day of conclave. So kind of just following through that tradition.
And I'm sure there's not cracks or massive divisions, but we did see a couple of failed votes. We saw that black smoke. Interesting to learn who some of those runner-ups were. I don't think we'll ever, who knows if we'll ever learn.
Such a secretive process.
Right, it's very secret. They don't even bring phones in there. So they've been in there for a couple of days, sequestered from the world. So a lot of things I'm sure many of the cardinals are still learning right now, just to kind of get caught up, because it's like a time capsule when you walk in there. But we were interested to see Pope Leo's timeline as he gets to work here. We see the procession now leading out away from the Sistine Chapel, back through the crowds as the ceremony begins to wind down here. You still see the crowds out there, still excited. People, still interested to see where this goes from here in the new direction of the church.
Yeah, and as this conclave was underway in the Sistine Chapel, there were other chapels within the Vatican that were used for prayers and celebrations during the conclave period. Obviously, very short-lived. I'm sure nobody's upset about that, for the conclave to only be 2 days. But for a while now, the past couple weeks, we have been sitting in what is known as sede vacante, which is the vacant seat. That is a Latin word meaning the vacant seat, meaning that Pope Francis left that seat vacant after unfortunately passing away the day after Easter. Such a symbolic time. As so many Italians were home on that Monday celebrating a very special holiday, the day after Easter. So many people shocked because we saw him stand on that very balcony and address the world and say Happy Easter. That was one of the things he wanted to do before he passed away.
Yeah, and what a great send-off, and a couple of weeks of sadness, but what a great start now here to Leo the 14th here, who definitely has his hands full. I can't reiterate that enough. But once again, another thing I can't reiterate, how big of a deal, for us non-Catholics, how big of a deal this is to have an American Pope, someone who obviously understands some of the things that go on in our country, and are interested to learn exactly how he might handle some of these larger issues going on across the world, whether they're, they're happening here or happening abroad. It'll be very interesting, a very tough time to become a pope as well, with so many things going on here.
I mean, we saw him take his first speech on that balcony and address the world. He addressed the world, blessing. He gave his blessing at first, but he also talked about a message of unity, saying that this needs to be not only an inclusive church, but a church that gives back, a church that cares for the poor, a church that really allows everyone to be part of it. And so many people were curious, because those first few words that you say, this is your first time addressing the entire world. So what he had to say was very important. So for it to be one of unity, it kind of shows you the direction that Pope Leo the 14th is going to take the church and the Catholic faith.
A little bit of a continuation, at least from what he says from Pope Francis. So that'll be, I'm sure, smoother for Catholics as that church continues going down at least somewhat of the same direction. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit different this, a little bit different that, but overall, that message of unity is still ringing true right there, and accepting everyone.
Yeah, we see the celebration continues there. Obviously, a very joyous moment. If you are just joining us, the very first Pope from the United States of America in the Catholic Church 2,000-year history is now been named Pope Leo the 14th is the name that he is going to be taking on. He was born Robert Francis Prevost. He is originally from Chicago, went to Villanova University, so obviously has very American ties there. President Donald Trump reacting, saying he's excited to hear that the next pope, or the pope now, is American, and he's excited to meet him. As we mentioned, J.D. Vance being one of the last few people to meet with Pope Francis. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out when it comes to America and its role in the Catholic Church.
And the Americas as well. Obviously, we know he has strong Peruvian ties right there, so I'm sure he even gave one of his part of the blessing, well, the blessing in Spanish again after giving it in Italian. So obviously, someone or a group that won't be forgotten about as he continues his papacy. Yeah. But that's a story we've been following from the death of Pope Francis to the conclave to now the selection of now Leo the 14th. This is a story we have been following right here on Local News Live for over a month now, several weeks since Easter, really, and even before that, obviously, because Pope Francis was sick and hospitalized. So all the latest right here on Local News Live. We're going to have a full recap at 2 o'clock. Ryan Pierce is going to be in studio in just a couple of minutes to get you all caught up and get you ahead on everything you need to know.
All right, Pope Leo the 14th is now the new pope. Stick with Local News Live for the very latest.
Sides. Live and local. 200 people were evacuated from a Delta plane. Find it on the all-new Local News Live streaming app. Search LNL on your TV, on your phone. It's fast. It's free.
Thanks for joining me on Local News Live. I'm Deborah Alfarone.
Local News Live. Always streaming. Always free. To coast. These are your stories, and no one covers them like Local News Live.
Spring storms are ravaging the South.
Every day, all day, stream the stories that have you talking near and far.
We're actually standing on State Street.
The ones that matter to you and your family.
You're cutting in to take a live look at the New York Stock Exchange.
From hundreds of local reporters and meteorologists spanning the country who know the streets and the people.
Happening now, there's an active shooter situation at Florida State University.
News as it happens from all sides.
Republicans went 2 for 2 tonight.
Live and local.
We can see some of the aftermath from Friday's fire.
Find it on the all-new Local News Live streaming app. Search LNL on your TV, on your phone. It's fast. It's free.
Thanks for joining me on Local News Live. I'm Deborah Alfarone.
Local News Live. Your nation. Your neighborhood. Always streaming. Always free.
The Good Side, inspiring stories with a positive impact every day on Local News Live.
Well, today on The Good Side, veterans often face silent struggles beyond the battlefield, long after their military service has been completed. LNL's Nicole Buckman highlights a nonprofit trying to heal mental health wounds through music.
As Mike Wilson and Eric Reckstetter strum along to Last Kiss, they think back to their last session with Guitars for Vets at the VFW National Home.
This feeder program, I'm going to get you hooked up with a guitar so you can learn. It's actually a little bit easier than I thought, you know. You get out what you put in.
And Eric puts in more than just music. He also brings his military past. Eric not only lived at the VFW National Home in Eaton Rapids as a kid, but also served in the Army.
From like 09 to 2019.
Like for most veterans, the transition between the battlefield to civilian life can be tough, and many struggle both physically and mentally, dealing with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and anger, which is why the executive director for the VFW National Home wanted to bring the Guitars for Vets to mid-Michigan.
And I saw a flyer, a magazine article that said, VFW partners with Guitars for Vets to teach veterans how to play guitar. And I was like, that program is coming to the National Home. That's going to be one of the first things we do.
The program kicked off in 2023, and since then has been a 6-string success.
They do 10 weeks of lessons. They start out right away and are told practice, practice, practice in between lessons. By the time that they finish their 10th lesson, they're ready to do a recital song and prepare to graduate. We send them off into the world with their guitar.
Eric graduated from the program last year and tells me that he's learned much more than songs and chords.
I think so. It takes you more of out of the analytical brain side, and instead of destroying yourself mentally, you get to like be more creative and put more creativity out in the world, you know.
Eric is one of 8,000 people across the country who have gone through this life-changing program. And Guitars for Vets says that nearly 30% of these veterans have seen a decrease in related symptoms of depression.
Because it's short accomplishments. It's, you can show somebody a new chord and they may not get it right the first time, but the more they play it, it comes and it comes and it comes. It's relaxing, it's a self-accomplishment. You're not accomplishing for someone else, you're doing it all for yourself. You know, and music in itself is just soothing.
I mean, mentally, it gets you out of the house, so you're not dwelling in your own mind. And here you get to, instead of suffer in silence, we all get to suffer in music.
Emphasis on we. Both Mike and Eric say that by learning the guitar with other veterans plays a major chord.
Well, then it's like camaraderie. You get to be with them, and so you're joking the whole time, and then you got a lot more common interests in music than you realize with other people, and, you know, becoming each other's battle buddies in the long run.
The community continues to back up this program too. In the past 2 years, they are literally working to get physical guitars in the hands of heroes.
But then people start hearing about the program and we get donated guitars. So now we have about 14 guitars, and they're of different sizes, shapes, neck widths, all different things. And that way the veteran can kind of figure out what guitar fits them best.
This year's session just kicked off and is open for all veterans in mid-Michigan, so no one feels alone.
Well, that's the nice thing about the guitar, is you're never alone. When you have a guitar, you have something, you know, something to do, something to play.
Wow, the power of music. I love seeing them all come together and share that commonality. He said instead of suffering in silence, unfortunately, we can suffer in music.
Right, and you know, those veterans, they go through so much more than any of us can imagine if you haven't been in those situations. So however they need to get that healing, I'm all for it. One thing I do want to see them do, they got to add a couple more instruments in there. You know, we got plenty of guitars. What about a drum set?
Hey,
what about
if
a
we
saxophone?
know somebody, we got to send them on over.
I know, you know, so we got to get them in there, but I love what they're doing right there. More music, more happiness. Love to see that right there. And if you have a story you want to share on the good side, help us spread the happiness. All you have to do, emails at news@localnewslive.com. We're very easy to find on social media. Let's check us out on Facebook. We love bringing out your good side.
And you can watch Local News Live anytime, anywhere. Just download our app, search L&L in your app store. Thanks so much for joining us for this hour of Local News Live. The news continues on localnewslive.com.
See you there.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's take a look.
Anytime can handle all your HVAC and plumbing needs, providing top quality service for a reasonable price.
All fixed now.
Can we call you again?
Yes, anytime. Any day? Yes, anytime.
But for the heat?
Yes, anytime. For the toilet? Yes, anytime. Anytime you have a problem, just call.
Anytime heating, cooling, and plumbing. Large enough to handle your HVAC needs, but small enough to care.
Hey, Doc, quick question.
Okay.
If you had to choose, would you give yourself a root canal or run payroll?
Run payroll. No question. Huh?
You know how tough payroll can be, right?
No, we switched to Gusto, and paying my team couldn't be easier. Gusto gives me unlimited payroll runs, next day direct deposit, and automatically files my taxes.
Taxes. Sounds like you know the drill.
Good one.
Can I run payroll too?
Sure. After this.
Choose payroll without the pain. That's working with Gusto.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's take a look.
Anytime can handle all your HVAC and plumbing needs, providing top quality service for a reasonable price.
All fixed now.
Can we call you again?
Yes, anytime. Any day? Yes, anytime.
But for the heats?
Yes, anytime. For the toilet? Yes, anytime. Anytime you have a problem, just call.
Anytime heating, cooling, and plumbing. Large enough to handle your HVAC needs, but small enough to care.
Hey, Doc, quick question.
Okay.
If you had to choose, would you give yourself a root canal or run payroll?
Run payroll. No question.
You know how tough payroll can be, right?
No, we switched to Gusto and paying my team couldn't be easier. Gusto gives me unlimited payroll runs, next day direct deposit, and automatically files my taxes.
Taxes. Sounds like you know the drill.
Good one.
Can I run payroll too?
Sure. After this.
Choose payroll without the pain. That's working with Gusto.
Qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem decimum quartum.
Today on Local News Live, a historic day, the first American elected to lead the Catholic Church. Who is Pope Leo XIV?
I opened the door, and as soon as I opened the door, just hell broke loose.
A massive storm ripping through Louisiana. We take you to the communities hit by tornado, hail, and flooding. And it's a viral video that shocked the country. A woman calling a child the N-word. Now community leaders are calling for her to be charged while she's raising hundreds of thousands of dollars. Local News Live starts right now. And we're taking a look at the Vatican, where 69-year-old Cardinal Robert Prevost stepped out onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica as Pope Leo XIV, the first American to lead the Catholic Church in its 2,000-year history. Hello, I'm Ryan Pierce. The new pontiff addressed the thousands of worshipers gathered for the historic moment. His first words: "Peace be with you all." His first speech focused on peace. He spoke in Italian and then switched to Spanish while recalling his years spent as a missionary in Peru. Pope Leo was born in Chicago. Prior to being elected, he served as the leader of the Vatican Office for Bishop Appointments, a position given to him by the late Pope Francis. Pope Leo is expected to continue much of the late pontiff's reforms. And we'll have more on the new Pope later on in the show. Well, now to a story Local News Live has been following since it broke. A former NICU nurse accused of abusing babies in her care now faces more charges. Erin Stratman was arraigned yesterday on 8 new counts. That's a total of 20 charges now. She's accused of hurting at least 9 babies at a Virginia hospital between 2022 and 2024. Our reporter spoke to the parents of one of the victims, a baby whose leg was broken.
To know that 1 week old my child was abused, that sentence alone keeps me up at night. It was not accidental. There was no birthing accident that happened. He doesn't have any bone disease, and I want to make that perfectly clear. He was abused, and somebody needs to be held accountable.
Stratman declined a jury trial, meaning her fate will be entirely up to the judge. Her trial is set to start early next year. And this video has gone viral. A woman in Minnesota hurling racial slurs at a 5-year-old black boy on a playground. The woman is Shiloh Hendricks, and her actions rocked the Rochester community. Now leaders are demanding justice and accountability. At a town hall, the local NAACP branch president read a statement on behalf of the victim's family.
We, as the parents of the young boy, we demand that those responsible for this tragic event, the unimaginable pain that has affected our beloved child, to be held fully accountable.
The NAACP launched a fundraiser for the family. It's raised more than $350,000 in about a week. It was in response to a fundraising campaign by Hendricks, who raised nearly $750,000. The local police is investigating the incident.
Disappointing, it's heartbreaking. You try cases, it's a business of trying cases.
3 former officers charged in the beating death of Tyree Nichols were acquitted of second-degree murder. Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith are among the 5 officers who pulled Tyree Nichols over in 2023 for alleged reckless driving. They punched, kicked, and hit him. Nichols died 3 days later. The state said the now former officers used excessive force. The defense argued Nichols was not complying. The jury deliberated for 8.5 hours. It found them not guilty of all state charges, but the 3 ex-officers still face prison time after being convicted on federal charges. LNL's Imani Williams spoke to people across Memphis to get their reactions.
There's no way these people found them not guilty. They murdered him. There's video, everybody saw it.
Shock felt throughout the city of Memphis Wednesday as the jury handed down its verdict of not guilty.
Not guilty. I was expecting something totally different from this. Based on what we've seen, what we've watched, what we know happened, what has already transpired as far as some of the officers already admitting guilt, how do you end up with a verdict of not guilty for the other 3?
Activists and residents confused with the jury's decision, many noting the video showing the incident.
I was pretty much shocked because it was very evident from the cameras what had taken place, and I did not understand the verdict.
It made me angry, and it was like, we already in a corrupt city, and then you slap us in the face with it. It's just time for a change. We have to be heard some type of way and by any type of situation.
LJ Abraham was a constant at Justice for Tyree events over the years. She walked out of the Shelby County Justice Center in tears.
It happens all over our country. They murder people and they get to walk free. And we don't get to see Tyree. He never gets to come home.
Well, massive storms ripped through parts of Louisiana on Tuesday, causing severe damage. We'll share the eye-popping cell phone video when we come back. You're watching Local News Live, local journalists connecting your nation to your neighborhood.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's take a look.
Anytime can handle all your HVAC and plumbing needs, providing top quality service for a reasonable price.
All fixed now.
Can we call you again?
Yes, anytime. Any day? Yes, anytime.
But for the heats?
Yes, anytime. For the toilet? Yes, anytime. Anytime you have a problem, just call.
Anytime heating, cooling, and plumbing. Large enough to handle your HVAC needs, but small enough to care.
Eva, quick question. If you had to choose, herding cats or building a benefits package for your team?
Oh, definitely benefits.
You know what a hairball benefits can be, right?
Actually, with Gusto, wrangling benefits like health insurance, dental, 401k, and workers' comp couldn't be easier.
Perfection.
Real original. Hey, make good choices.
Choose benefits without the chaos. That's working with Gusto.
I told myself I was okay with my active psoriatic arthritis symptoms.
That I could accept my ongoing PSA symptoms. But just okay isn't okay.
And I was done settling.
If you still have symptoms after trying a TNF blocker like Humira or Enbrel, Rinvoq works differently. Rinvoq is a once-daily pill that can rapidly relieve joint pain, stiffness, and swelling as fast as 2 weeks for some. And even at the 3-year mark, many people felt this relief. It can stop joint damage, and Rinvoq can leave skin clear or almost clear.
Rinvoq can lower ability to fight infections. Before treatment, test for TB and do blood work. Serious infections, blood clots, some fatal. Cancers including lymphoma and skin, serious allergic reactions, GI tears, death, heart attack, and stroke occurred. CV event risk increases in age 50 plus with a heart disease risk factor. Tell your doctor if you've had these events, infection, Hep B or C, smoked, are pregnant, or planning. Don't take if allergic or have an infection.
Done settling?
Ask your rheumatologist for Rinvoq.
Then take back what's yours.
Well, the U.S. has hit a grim new milestone. The number of confirmed measles cases just surpassed 1,000. That's based on data from the CDC and state health departments. Most are in West Texas, but more than half of all states have reported at least one case. This year is on track to be the worst for measles since it was declared eliminated in 2000. Well, sexually transmitted diseases are rising nationwide, among them syphilis. The CDC reports cases shot up nearly 80% between 2018 and 2020, and that number is still going up. But as Local News Live's Mason Carroll reports, the Navajo Nation is seeing success in fighting the disease.
bring the penicillin to the patient, not the patient to the penicillin.
Dr. Jonathan Irlu with Indian Health Services says, like the U.S., they've noticed an uptick in syphilis cases before and after the pandemic. The CDC shows a continuous rise in U.S. syphilis cases. However, cases have decreased across the Navajo Nation.
Almost a 20% decline in the incidence of early syphilis. So these are exciting trends.
Dr. Irlu says there are challenges for people across the reservation to access health care, so they bring their doctor's office to the people.
It is indeed challenging for people to drive long distances in for testing or to seek care. We're really happy. We're hopeful that things will dramatically improve over the next couple of years.
Testing sites can be at food pantries or community centers, even at the patient's home. After 2 drops of blood and a 15-minute wait, they'll get results and treatment if needed.
We have wonderful teams of public health nurses that will go out far away to remote sites to offer testing and treatment.
To fight the stigma of STDs, IHS also offers express testing.
We offer penicillin treatment right there at the testing site.
Dr. Irlu says it's been a lot of hard work, but he hopes they can be a model for the rest of the country.
Express testing means you can go into a facility and get a test without seeing a provider. And this takes away a lot of the stigma.
Reporting in Flagstaff, Mason Carroll for Arizona's Family.
Mason, thank you. You're watching Local News Live. We'll be right back.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's take a look.
Anytime can handle all your HVAC and plumbing needs, providing top quality service for a reasonable price.
All fixed now.
Can we call you again?
Yes, anytime. Any day? Yes, anytime.
But for the heats?
Yes, anytime. For the toilet? Yes, anytime. Anytime you have a problem, just call.
Anytime heating, cooling, and plumbing. Large enough to handle your HVAC needs, but small enough to care.
Welcome back. You're watching Local News Live. Here are some other stories we're following in 90 seconds. Old operating systems at your airport could soon see an update. Earlier today, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy announced plans to revamp the air traffic control system. And last week, Duffy laid out how he hopes to end the air traffic controller shortage. His plan could cost $30 billion. The push for change follows a recent tragedy. An American Airlines jet and U.S. Army helicopter crashed near Washington, D.C. in January, killing 67 people. Well, 78 pro-Palestinian protesters were arrested after demonstrating at Columbia University yesterday. 2 others were issued summons. The school called police after some of the protesters took over the library. Columbia's president says the protesters, quote, vandalized and defaced the library. The university faces threats of funding cuts from the Trump administration for its previous handling of pro-Palestinian protests last year. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio says he will review the visas of the protesters. India and Pakistan may be inching closer to war. India fired attack drones into Pakistan today, reportedly killing 2 people and wounding 4 soldiers. Pakistan says it managed to shoot down 25 drone attacks from India. All this follows another Indian attack on Pakistan that killed 31 people yesterday. You're watching Local News Live. We'll be right back.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's take a look.
Anytime can handle all your HVAC and plumbing needs, providing top quality service for a reasonable price.
All fixed now.
Can we call you again?
Yes, anytime. Any day? Yes, anytime.
But for the heats?
Yes, anytime. For the toilet? Yes, anytime. Anytime you have a problem, just call.
Anytime heating, cooling, and plumbing. Large enough to handle your HVAC needs, but small enough to care.
Ever feel like a spectator in your own life with chronic migraine? 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more. Botox prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. In a survey, 91% of users wish they'd started sooner. So why wait? Talk to your doctor.
Botox effects may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as trouble swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Those with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions like rash, breathing problems, dizziness, neck and injection site pain, and headache. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions like ALS, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medicines like botulinum toxins, which may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Chronic migraine may still keep you from being there. Ask your doctor about Botox today. Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
Hi, I'm Mike Love of the Beach Boys, enjoying a pour of our award-winning barrel-finished rum. This is how I Kokomo, how you Kokomo.
Well, here's a look at Vatican City, where today Cardinal Robert Prevost stepped out onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica as Pope Leo XIV, the first American to lead the Catholic Church. And joining us now is Christopher Altier, the contributing editor for Crux in the Catholic World Report. Christopher, thanks for joining us. I feel like I should be waving an American flag because this feels like such a monumental day. But in all seriousness, how significant is it to have a first American Pope?
Boy, Ryan, if I may, he's the first pope from the United States. I think
sure.
Our friends and neighbors in Argentina are rightly jealous of their fella who was the first American pope. But this confluence of, if I might put it this way, hard power and soft power is something quite unexpected. I think it's fair to say that none of us Vatican pundits and veteran Vatican watchers really had this one on his bingo card.
So it is a big surprise then. Nobody was expecting this, or at least very few were expecting this, especially because of that tie to the U.S. But it seems like a significant background in Peru. He's a dual citizen. It made a big difference here.
Yes, he is. And I can say that he certainly fits the profile of the fellow that I thought that they would be looking for, the cardinals in conclave. He is an institutionalist by character and temperament, a fellow who is familiar with what I might call the Roman machinery of government, but he's not, if I could put it this way, a curial lifer. The Roman curia is the central governing apparatus of the church. And he's not a fellow who has spent his entire life, or even a powerfully significant portion of it, directly in Vatican service. As you mentioned, he's been a missionary a good bit of his life in Peru, as you say. He's an Augustinian, so another religious cleric following Pope Francis, who was, of course, a Jesuit. He has experience in pastoral government. Therefore, he has a broad view of the church's global footprint. He was prefect of the congregation for bishops, the dicastery for bishops now, as it's styled. So the head of the department in the Roman government, as I was saying before, that helps the Pope to, among other things, to choose bishops for various places around the world. So he has a global viewpoint and an understanding of the place of the church in the international community, but again, not a career diplomat.
Christopher, what
and again, the biggest surprise is that he is from the United States, which I, for one, was just not expecting.
Well, Christopher, we got about 30 seconds left. Pope Francis, known as the People's Pope. Maybe it's a little bit early to tell, but what do you think Pope Leo XIV will be known as? What are his most significant viewpoints?
Well, he is if I could put it this way, a theological moderate as far as I can tell. I think we don't really know who he is until he shows us, and who he is in the office of Peter is bound to be very different from who he was as a private citizen, as it were, right? So this is very much a wait-and-see moment. That said, I think his name, the choice of Leo, the fellow who was the father of Catholic social teaching in the modern era, is very telling. But again, yeah, we're going to wait and see.
Well, Christopher, thank you for the valuable information. We appreciate it. And you're watching Local News Live. We'll be right back.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's take a look.
Anytime can handle all your HVAC and plumbing needs, providing top quality service for a reasonable price.
All fixed now.
Can we call you again?
Yes, anytime. Any day? Yes, anytime.
But for the heats?
Yes, anytime. For the toilet? Yes, anytime. Anytime you have a problem, just call.
Anytime heating, cooling, and plumbing. Large enough to handle your HVAC needs, but small enough to care.
The New Orleans area is still cleaning up after a massive storm Tuesday. It brought torrential rain, downing telephone poles and knocking out traffic lights. Surveillance and cell phone video caught the fury of Mother Nature.
Normally you associate a train sound with a tornado, and I didn't hear that. It was just so strong, like it was just blowing.
But a tornado did touch down in northwest Louisiana near Shreveport. It snapped trees in half and uprooted them. The area also saw flooding and hail. We have meteorologists all over tracking the weather in your neighborhood and across the country. Let's take a quick look at the Midwest forecast.
Happy Thursday. I'm meteorologist Caitlin Lohr from KEYC News Now in Mankato, Minnesota. Your regional forecast showing temperatures ranging from the upper 40s up in the upper Midwest into those low 80s depending on where you are in the central Midwest regions. It's going to be another summer full-like day out there with nothing but sunshine for most of us. A few clouds in Nebraska, a couple sprinkles possible up in North and South Dakota, but really just more so sprinkles and showers out there. Most of us are going to stay clear and quiet. Drought monitor showing that we are seeing dry conditions sticking around, and temperatures tonight dropping anywhere from 29 degrees all the way up into the low 50s across the region. Again, I'm meteorologist Caitlin Lohr from KUIC News Now, Mankato, Minnesota. That is a look at your regional forecast.
Well, today on the good side, there may be a nationwide shortage of school bus drivers, but not in one family. 3 brothers from Nebraska who are all school bus drivers ended up at the same track meet. Local News Live's Grace McDonald caught up with them.
This Northwest High School track meet is also a family reunion for 3 brothers who drive buses from Kearney and North Platte.
We just enjoy sports, and when we get together, then we can visit about our mother and our families.
Despite having the same occupation, it's rare for them to have the same destination.
I think the very first time it happened, we didn't know we was all going to be there.
Alan Little worked as a mail carrier for 30 years before driving part-time for North Platte Public Schools.
I don't know if that was lucky or unlucky, but they hired me, so I talked my brothers into driving buses too. I'll take the credit for that. I said they would enjoy it.
But the youngest brother, Tony Little, points to his wife for inspiring this career path.
My wife had been driving a bus for 31 years and just retired this previous year, so I'd give her a little credit.
Tony drives charter buses for teams and works for Kearney Public Schools alongside the firstborn, Gary Little.
Just a calendar. I got a calendar on the refrigerator. Each school, each job, each has a different color.
Gary worked as a UPS truck driver for 39 years before juggling bus schedules for Kearney Public Schools and Kearney Catholic.
My bus broke down, loaded all the kids onto his bus, and took off and got them home.
I think it was actually this meet when that happened, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The miles are worth it to come to the Northwest High School track meet because then the brothers get to watch a sport that they grew up loving and excelling at together. The long hours give them plenty of time to reminisce about races.
So it'll be about midnight when we get home. Alan will get home about 1:30, I'll bet. Yep, that's probably right.
Gary remembers competing in the first state track and field meet ever held at Burke High School.
I won overall gold of all classes, and then my senior year I just won the Class C.
And Tony broke Mullen High School's long jump record that was set by his brother Alan.
Oh yeah, I'll give him a little credit.
Thank you. Thank you.
Aside from sharing childhood memories, the brothers decked out in blue are in the stands for their students.
That's the highlight of the day, getting them there and getting them home safe.
For Pure Nebraska, I'm Grace McDonald.
The stories those brothers have, I'm sure they sit at a bar, have a beer, and share a lot of them as well. That's a really good piece. Well, you're watching Local News Live, your nation, your neighborhood. We'll be right back.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's take a look.
Anytime can handle all your HVAC and plumbing needs, providing top quality service for a reasonable price.
All fixed now.
Can we call you again?
Yes, anytime. Any day? Yes, anytime.
But for the heats?
Yes, anytime. For the toilet? Yes, anytime. Anytime you have a problem, just call.
Anytime heating, cooling, and plumbing. Large enough to handle your HVAC needs, but small enough to care.
Thank you for joining me on Local News Live. I'm Brian Pierce. An update on President Trump's tariffs. The president announced a trade deal with the UK today. And LNL White House correspondent John Decker joins me now. John, it sounds like you just spoke with the president right after he made that big announcement. What did you have to say?
I did, Ryan. I spoke with the president. He came out to the entrance to the West Wing. I was the first reporter that he called upon. I asked the president, is this what we can expect going forward? More of these types of trade deals being announced here at the White House? And the president said yes. In fact, 3 more trade deals are in the works, and perhaps that could be announced before the president leaves on his trip early next week to the Middle East.
Potentially 3 more trade deals coming up. I'm guessing he didn't give any indication as to which countries those might be, right?
No, that's correct. But we know that there have been ongoing talks with India, also with South Korea and Japan. Perhaps those are the countries in which trade deals could be announced, given that those talks are so far along, Ryan.
John, I want to ask, what are the details of the trade deal today with the UK?
Well, so much focus, Ryan, is on the tariffs. Those 10% baseline tariffs, they're not going away. But what is going away are tariffs as it relates to steel that comes from the UK, and also airplane parts, specifically those Rolls-Royce engines that are used on Boeing jets. There will be no tariffs on those items at all. And you remember the president over a month ago implemented tariffs, 25% tariffs on imported cars and trucks. That number, as it relates to those automobiles manufactured in the UK, they'll come down from 25% tariffs, that rate, down to 10%. So substantial progress being made in these trade talks that were announced by the president earlier today.
John, sticking with trade, both China and the U.S. are confirming a high-level meeting will soon take place aimed at lowering tensions between both countries. What do we know about this upcoming meeting?
Well, this meeting is taking place this week. In fact, although Secretary of the Treasury Bessent was here today, he's traveling to Switzerland. Those talks will take place in Switzerland. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, the USTR, also traveling to Switzerland. He's a few feet away from me right now. They will both be meeting with the top trade negotiator for China. The president cautioning that he does not expect to see a trade deal come out of these talks, but is hopeful that progress can be made in that regard during this first high-level talk that will occur in Switzerland later this week.
It is a lot to cover. Local News Live White House correspondent John Decker. John, thank you for sharing with us that valuable information. We appreciate it. And you're watching Local News Live. We'll be right back.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's take a look.
Anytime can handle all your HVAC and plumbing needs, providing top quality service for a reasonable price.
All fixed now.
Can we call you again?
Yes, anytime. Any day? Yes, anytime.
But for the heat?
Yes, anytime. For the toilet? Yes, anytime. Anytime you have a problem, just call.
Anytime heating, cooling, and plumbing. Large enough to handle your HVAC needs, but small enough to care.
It's an opportunity for scam survivors to take the power back into their hands, showing you how to protect yourself from falling victim. Local News Live investigative reporter Carice Jackman was given exclusive access to the BBB Scam Survivor Day event here in D.C., and she has more.
In Washington, D.C., consumer advocates, legal experts, and scam survivors gathered on what's now being called National Scam Survivor Day. The goal? End the stigma associated with scams and share stories.
So the BBB Institute works with partners across all kinds of areas, but our scam survivors are the most important people because they let us know the scam activity that's going on. They share their stories so that other people may be in the same thing. They might be in the middle of it, and they're able to hear, oh my God, this is happening to me right now, and they're able to help prevent scams from happening down the road.
Melanie McGovern, spokesperson with the Better Business Bureau, says they want to put the power back in the hands of the consumer.
Even if you didn't lose money, it's so important to report scams to us so that we can see the trends, the patterns, work with the media, get the message out to let people know that this is the tactic they're using. Here's what you can